Bob, this impropriety, embezzling funds, actually led you to go to prison. What happened in prison, and what, even before, long before you went, tell us about what was going on in your life. Bob, I got to be very honest, and I've said this to your face before, but when I first knew you and you joined Calvary Baptist Church, whatever, you know, I didn't see you as real faithful in church attendance. I'd see you, and then I wouldn't see you. And there was, quite honestly, a bit of an arrogance about you. There was a pride. But Bob, one day you came to me, and you, in my office, just shared your heart, what you did, what had happened. But I saw such a difference in you, a change. What was happening, Bob?
I'm reminded...
And it was a good change.
Well, that's good. I'm glad.
Yes, definite change.
I'm reminded of God's word in terms of the whole discipline piece. You know, God disciplines those that he loves. And I'm convinced that God did not cause me to sin. That was by my own hand. But God allowed those events to transpire, and he tried to get my attention. He was nudging me over the years, and I ignored it. I know now that I ignored his efforts to get my attention. And he had to take an anvil and drop it on my head. He used my predecessor to bring apart my downfall. But at the time, I didn't. I thought it was the most horrible thing in the world. But today, I can look back and I just have a tremendous amount of gratitude towards God, and I thank him for that, because he had to rescue me from myself. He had to, when I was in control of my life, I was running it into the ground. And in fact, I did run it into the ground, and he had to really peel away all those layers of arrogance and greed and pride and all those things, those parts of us that demand self-sufficiency. And I was brought, probably I think I called you, reached out to you within 2 or 3 weeks of my fall, and I characterized December 11th as my fall because it's such a demarcation point in my life. I had no place to go. I had reached a point of utter desperation. I actually had suicidal thoughts. I didn't know what I was going to do. And so, who do I call? I call my pastor. I'm a member of a church, but I really haven't been plugged in of that church. And so I reached out to you. And I didn't have any expectations of what you were going to say or advise me. But you told me I needed to surrender and I needed to trust and obey God. I needed to come back to God because he was trying to get my attention. And you planted seeds that God began to germinate in my life. And it was over a period of weeks and months that I really began to walk with God and really began to just cry out to him and just really I reached a point, Lord, if you want my house, you can have my house. If you want my wife, you can have my wife. If you want my kids, you can have my kids. I wasn't holding on to anything because I had nothing to hold on to. I was no longer in control of my life. But that's where God needed to bring me. He needed to bring me to a point where I didn't even know where my next day was going to end up. And in hindsight, I can look back now and say, thank you, Lord, because I can see his hand. Even in my disobedience, God was working his plan out in my life. That gives me tremendous comfort, tremendous comfort.
Bob, what I saw when you came to my office, and I saw it in weeks and months after that, was what I would call genuine repentance. And quite honestly, I don't see that as often as I'd like to see it. The Bible makes it very clear that repentance is to have a change of mind that leads to a change of heart, that leads to a change in behavior. It's not just being sorry that you got caught, but you were so sorry for the sin that you'd committed it. And it's theft. Thou shalt not steal. It's one of the big ones. It's one of the 10 Commandments. But I saw such a humbleness in you, Bob, and a genuine repentance to be willing to turn away from sin, to be willing to do whatever you could do to make this situation right. In fact, I think you even wanted to go back to the school board and actually confess.
Correct.
And maybe at some point that will happen, or maybe even God will use this program to let people know that you are truly, genuinely repentant.
I truly believe that I needed to appear before the very employer that I violated that trust with, and to just ask for their forgiveness and to apologize and just to extend my deepest sympathies to them and express my remorse. And I'm not really sure how to even articulate that in words at the moment, but that was planted. I think God planted that in my heart just a few months after this happened. And I remember going to my criminal attorney and telling him and saying, look, Joe, I really want to do this. And he advised me against it, and he was looking out for my best interest legally. But I still wanted to do that, so I honored his wishes. But at the day of sentencing, I had an opportunity to read a statement before the judge, Judge Bum, and in that statement, which I posted on my website, I explained that I wanted to go before the Board of Ed, and I said perhaps this venue in court would allow me to express that remorse. And so she listened, and then her reply to me was, would you really like to do that, Mr. Walsh, if I ordered it? And I said, sure, Judge, I would love to have that. That would be an answer to prayer, because I've been praying for that. And so the judge said, well, I can't order them to host you, but I can certainly order you to write them a letter, which I did. And so I wrote the letter in accordance with a judicial order, but I wrote it because it came from my heart as well. Now, I never heard from the school board, heard a response, and I'm not surprised, and I understand if they didn't want to respond. But I posted that letter on my website, and maybe even through this venue today, you know, just if someone from the community, from the Board of Education, from my school district is watching, you know, I am so sorry for what I did, and there's words I can't express. I wish I could turn back the clock, but I can't. And I'm committed to making restitution. The judge ordered restitution, and I'm paying back more than what I stole. I'm paying back almost $17,000 more to cover any costs that they had. And so I want to make that district completely financially whole. And I believe I have a responsibility not only to the court, but also before God. And God has enabled me to do that. He has blessed me during these last couple of years to make monthly payments. Every month I'm writing out a check until that's paid.
Amen. Bob, we all sin. The Bible makes it clear, very clear, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. We all sin, but not all people are willing to deal with their sin. And this is the whole purpose of why God sent His only Son, Jesus Christ, was to die on the cross to pay the penalty for our sins. I mean, what an act of love. Greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And that's what Jesus did for us. But we have to accept that. We have to be willing to accept God's forgiveness. And you have accepted His forgiveness, and you've been forgiven. And Bob, you're a totally different Bob Walsh than what I knew before this experience happened. You're very different, and I love you dearly. You know that, and I've really gotten to know you. And I just wish there'd be so many more people who would deal with their own personal sin the way you have. Let's go back a little bit to the prison experience, because you did spend time in federal prison, or whatever the judge sentenced you to.
That's correct.
And what was your sentence?
I was exposed to a 12 to 18-month federal term based upon, there's guidelines based upon the amount of money that I was convicted of stealing. But the judge showed mercy on me, and the judge sentenced me to 12 months and 1 day. And that 1 day is significant because federal law states that if you're sentenced to up to 12 months, you serve the entire sentence. But anything greater than 12 months, you get a 15% statutory credit, good time credit. There's no more parole in the federal system. So the day that I walked into federal prison, I knew the day I was leaving. And I walked in on June 24th of 2009, and I was released on May 7th, 2009.
2010.
2010,
yeah,
correct.
About 10 and a half months.
10 and a half months.
318 days or something like that?
Yeah, and ironically, it's a little longer than the length of a school year. And I just find that interesting. And
Bob, you've been a Christian. How did you become a Christian?
I became a Christian in my late teens through Melinda's father, predominantly. He came out of the same faith that I did early on. And he shared with me God's redemptive story. And I often tell people that he scared me into heaven because he really emphasized the need for salvation, because we're all going to live eternally. It's a matter of where we're going to live. And so God used him mightily in my life at that point. But something happened where I was so wrapped up in my career and my schooling and looking at, living, quote, the American dream. I'm not really sure what it was, but my zeal for God began to wane, and I treated Jesus Christ as if I had eternal fire insurance, as if I carried this trump card, this get out of hell, card in my back pocket. And it wasn't until this event in my life that I realized, wait a minute, I've been bought with a price. I've been redeemed. God purchased me with his death. And my life is not my own. I can't live my life the way I want to live my life. And while I was in prison, Melinda sent me a book by Max Lucado called It's Not About Me. And it's a short, simple read, but very profound. And that was one of my favorite books, and we passed it around all throughout prison. And it states that we don't exist to build our nest eggs, to build our careers, to achieve greater worldly achievements, whether through education or money or those kind of things. We're created to give God glory. And it took me to be in this position to realize that I was living my life completely wrong in every way. And so my motto is finish well. I want to finish well. My first 43 years ended up crash and burning. But if God gives me another 30 years on this earth, I just want to live for him and share the good news of God and just express and share my testimony and say, look, if God can redeem me for what I did, he can do that to anyone. And so that's really where I'm looking. I'm looking ahead.